All right, Fresh.
Well,
I
we
would
only
say
have two
here,
teams left.
we only got two teams left. Let's go to that other team that's in Ann Arbor. Our number two team is the Wolverines, that school up north. Again, winning the Big Ten for the second straight year in a row, beating Ohio State. It went undefeated in the regular season, kind of just rolled through everybody, but they also, they played a cakewalk of a schedule outside of pretty much two or three teams there. And then they get completely shellacked by TCU in the playoff. And it kind of like, granted, TCU was really good, but it didn't make a whole lot of sense. So I don't know. They got Blake Corum coming back. They got Donovan Edwards. JJ McCarthy is back there as well. Caden McNamara, he's transferred out as the backup. He's heading over to Iowa. You look at McCarthy, he made a huge leap last year. He's the type of quarterback that Jim Harbaugh needs. 22 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. But realistically, this game, the Michigan offense is going to rest on the shoulders of Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards. The two of them just combined for over 2,300 yards. Take a look. They had 25 touchdowns on the season on the ground. It really are who's going to step up for the Wolverines as the wide receiver? Is it going to be Cornelius Johnson, 6'3" kid? He's a senior. He had 6 touchdowns last year. Is he going to be the Braylon Edwards? Is he going to be the Mario Manningham? Is he going to be that top tier wide receiver that we've gotten so used to the Wolverines having? I don't know. I really think that the Wolverines are going to maybe take a step back defensively. They've lost a lot defensively the last 2 years. And sooner or later, when losing that amount of talent on that side of the football, it really can hurt them. For me, Fresh, the game's always going to come down, just like I said with Ohio State. It's going to come down for me for the last 4 weeks of the season for the Wolverines. Take a look. They got Purdue coming in, and then they have to go to Happy Valley, and then they have to turn around and go to an up-and-coming team in Maryland. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, Maryland's an up-and-coming team. Maryland played a lot of people tough last year. This could be one of those games. I'm coming down off of being at Penn State. I know I got my rival next weekend. A lot of times last year, the Wolverines played Illinois in a very, very tight game the weekend before the rivalry. This could be another one of those tight games. Outside of that, the rest of the schedule is an absolute joke. You go to Nebraska, you go to Minnesota. Okay, you got big brother, little brother as well. I don't know. Fresh, I don't see much at the early half of the schedule. I don't see the Wolverines being any less than 9-0 going into that November 11th game versus Penn State. What do you got for the Wolverines?
This team they've built the model of what Harbaugh wants to do. What he did in the NFL, what he did at Stanford. You build a big offensive line, you got tight ends, you got running backs, and you don't put your quarterback in position to do too much. McCarthy doesn't have to go out and win football games for Michigan because they run the football. The offensive line owns the line of scrimmage. They're very physical. They run the ball down your throat, play action here or there, but they don't have to go out there in a situation because they're not down early. Just throw the ball, put 3 or 4 receivers on the field, and try to catch up. I think that's where they got hit in the mouth by TCU early. TCU jumped them, whether it was turnovers or just touchdowns, and he totally got them in a shock mode where they didn't know how to respond. They had not been punched in the mouth that consistently and that early by a team they overlooked. They were thinking they were going to be playing Ohio State or Georgia in Cali 10 days later, and that game versus TCU was a walkover. And they learned hard. They had to get focused the entire time. That was the first time all season they actually looked like they were not ready to play. Will Harbaugh have that change coming in the season? We'll find out. Obviously, we're coming forward. But their schedule, again, a bunch of cakewalks. They have nothing really true to get ready for outside of Penn State and outside of Ohio State. Michigan's going to just scroll through, and they've already even started doing Georgia practices to get ready for Georgia. And someone even joked maybe they should install TCU practices because they should get ready for them and not worry about a team they haven't played. But either way, their mindset's already on 2 games this season. They think they're going to be undefeated, and then going forward. They've lost a lot of players up this roster the past couple of years. How are they going to continue to keep replacing the talent they keep losing? They don't have a number one receiver. They have a bunch of unknowns. Who's going to step up and actually be able to show up consistently for them and play? is McCarthy truly the Big Ten quarterback? I have not seen him play at an elite level for a full 4 quarters in a game that actually mattered. He was able to manage the game versus Ohio State. They ran the ball down their throat. It wasn't because he was throwing the ball all the time, making fantastic throws. They ran the ball very efficiently. He was able to do some play action. But has he been, when he had to play versus TCU, he turned the ball over a few times. He looked a little discombobulated and wasn't truly there and wasn't truly focused. I think he's an okay quarterback. He's not an elite quarterback, but this year he has a chance to prove me wrong. Corum and Edwards, absolutely amazing running backs. Absolutely fantastic behind a very, very good offensive line. That's the key to Michigan. They have to control the line of scrimmage, slow the game down. They don't want to score quick like Tennessee or score quick like Washington. They're going to matriculate the ball down the field, and they're going to try to run tons of clock off, keep their defense rested, and score, and they don't care about winning the football game. I don't think they care if they do it sexy. They don't care if they win by 50. They just need to win football games because in the end, if they win the Big Ten, they're going to the playoff, and that's where, like we mentioned about Ohio State, your goal is not just to be 10-2. Your goal is to playoff and beyond. Like that's where your expectation is at. So if you just manage your schedule and go 11-1, you're going to get the at-large bid. You're going to go to the playoff, and then from there, you let the chips fall where they may. And that's where Harbaugh's built the program at, where he just needs to know I don't have to do anything sexy. I don't have to beat a ton of ranked teams to boost me from number 22 preseason all the way to the top 4. I'm starting here. I just got to maintain where I'm at. Do not choke and get yourself through. I think this year, actually, Michigan might have a team that actually chokes and chokes a couple times because their defense in losing guys wasn't exactly, in my opinion, that great last year. And I'm about to tell you why. Per PFF College, who does Pro Football Focus, they do Pro Football College, they do tons of evaluations and tons of grading out. They are very, very good at their job. Michigan faced 6 teams last season whose passing success rate was ranked 115th or worse in the country. Half of your schedule were the bottom 12, 15 teams in the country in throwing the football. You never had to worry about protecting against the pass. You brought everybody up in the box. And you were able to shut down the running game because the quarterbacks and receivers in the opposing teams were god awful. The only 2 teams you played in the top 30 were Ohio State, which was 3rd in the nation, and Penn State, which was 29th. Outside of that, you played nobodies who could throw the ball on you. You had nothing to worry about. You could bring your safeties and bring your cornerbacks up. You had no issues whatsoever, and you were able to control the game at your own pace. If you start playing offenses that actually control, because TCU was actually 67th in the pass efficiency, and they still put up tons of points on you and beat you. If you start playing legit teams consistently, it's going to expose you. And that team got exposed because they didn't play very good offenses, and it allowed that defensive rating, just like Iowa, the same way. You play terrible offenses for the most part of the year. You make your stats look fantastic, and you're like, oh, we're a top 5 defense. When the proof hits the pudding, you're actually not that great. You were playing a bunch of terrible teams. And I think that this year they're going to be exposed because they're going to play a few better offenses. And as the time goes on, not just this year, but next year and the year after, unless they start recruiting more elite players to Michigan to play defense and get better and better and better and evolve their team, they're going to pay the price. Is their window closing? I personally think the window is getting toward the end. That is a 2-year run there. Ohio State's very upset. Penn State's getting better. The rest of the Big Ten has woken up with Matt Rule and Fickle coming into the conference. They're in trouble. Yes, the playoff will expand in the future and probably get them in anyway. But when they start playing nationally, they're going to be in much bigger situations. They're going to fail. Michigan has to take advantage of this year in 2023 because if not, that blip on the radar for Harbaugh is going to quickly fade, and they're going to start losing some battles in the trenches, losing some battles in recruiting, and losing some battles on the scoreboard because they aren't what they truly think they are. They are not a tough team. If they had to play in Alabama or Georgia right now, they would still get run over because they're not tough defensively and offensively consistently at a depth perspective. They have maybe one guy there, but they don't have that second and that third guy. They're living in some sort of weird situation. Once they develop that and they can build it, they'll be okay. But I think this window is closing for Michigan, and they need to watch out. Bo Schembechler never won a national championship. He won a bunch of Big Ten titles. Jim Harbaugh is doing the exact same thing. He's won 2 straight Big Ten titles. Hasn't won a playoff game, much less played for a national championship. I think they're becoming the same thing. He loves him. He played for Bo. He wears the hat just like him, puts the glasses on, walks around the field looking just like him. He's literally becoming Bo Schembechler. He's not going to win a national championship, but he will win Big Ten titles. And I think that eventually is going to wear off, where he's going to become a victim of his own success, where he's won Big Ten titles, and that's no longer the standard. The standard's a natty, and I don't think they're ready for that. I don't think they have the talent and the depth to win that, and that's going to pay off this year. Michigan's in for a rude awakening. Their 2-year window is coming to a close. They're going to get hit with reality really quick unless they adapt and evolve as a football program to the national scheme. With that said, the schedule, it's a cakewalk. Michigan State's the only true game that I think could even be perceived outside of Penn State or Ohio State as a tough game just because it's a rival. They're gonna wipe Mel Tucker and the Spartans off the map. That won't even matter. Ceiling is 12-0, floor is 10-2. But after this, future looks a little bit rougher for Michigan with everybody else catching up. They better take advantage of it now because in 2024 and beyond, it's going to be real tough.
Fresh, I'm with you on that. I'm looking at Michigan this year, and I'm saying that they're going to go. I can't see them losing more than 2 games. I think Penn State and Ohio State are the only 2 options that really could give them fits, but the rest of the schedule is just too easy to me. I mean, if they lose a game in there, by all means, like, wow. And we would be remiss not to mention they do have one of the top offensive linemen in Zach Zinter. Like, he is one of the best offensive linemen in college football, which allows them to run the football really, really well. But I'm with you on this. It's going to come down to those 2 games this year. The level of expectation is changing in Ann Arbor. It is going to be expecting to play for a national title. They still haven't even done that. They haven't even played for a national title. That's what their next step has to be. They don't have to. I don't necessarily think Harbaugh has to win a national title. And I think that the comparison you make with him and Schembechler is a great comparison. I really do. But at the end of the day, he's got to at least play for the national title. If he doesn't at least do that, then great. If he keeps beating Ohio State, then they're going to still love him and they're going to keep him around. But there's always going to be that desire for more. You know, Wolverine fans are going to want more. And then you take a look at next year. You know, it's not a cakewalk of a schedule. You got Texas, you got USC, and then you got Ohio State as well. So they're going to have 3. Plus, they also have UCLA on the schedule. You know, UCLA is not going to be world beaters, but they are going to be a good football team. So it's coming in.